a legend of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent, featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. I'm here on this cold and rainy morning in the mountains of Southern California, looking for monsters in our midst. Oh, what's that? I saw a tall, gangly man running through the woods. And on my other side, a blonde ponytail whipping back and forth. And the call, precious, tender. Oh no, they're upon me.
We are the monsters?
Yes.
Wow.
That's us. We are monsters.
We took them down in those Santa Monica mountains.
Mm-hmm.
I was just inspired.
You know what the name of that movie would be?
What would that be?
Ryan, Sam, and Joanna, podcasters attack at all the same time. Parentheses. Oh yeah. End parentheses. Because that's the best we can do in terms of titling these movies, is just the most insane combination of words you've ever heard.
Make sure it's long, too.
Yeah, for some reason, this is the only unlocalized Godzilla title, completely just transliterated from the Japanese. And so, of course, today we are talking about Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, giant monsters, all-out attack, better known in the fan circles as the much simpler GMK.
Woo! I was Googling GSK to try to search for it for a minute and was not able to find it. So GMK for everyone. And all the real fans out there will know.
Why S? There's no monster that starts with an S.
Yeah, but Ryan, I would know that. Come on, we've been doing this for 5 years. I don't have a clue who the hell is in these movies. I don't remember any of them.
Oh, well, we're not alone. Here, accompanying us on our expedition, is special effects, makeup, puppetry, just all-around craftsman of the wondrous, and a pal of mine, Jasper Anderson. Thank you for being here today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
That was a great intro. I love that. I wish that was me.
You're by far the most qualified guest this week. By far the most qualified guest for these specific movies that we've had. I shouldn't say ever, because that seems like a slam on our other guests. Let me reword that. You are an especially qualified guest.
Yes. So we're very lucky to have you.
I appreciate that. Well, in fact, I did actually work on one of your previous movies.
You did?
Yes. Pacific Rim 2.
Oh my gosh.
And I had not watched it after working on it because I had a feeling. And then I listened to the podcast, and that was great because now I don't have to.
Man. Happy to have given that to you.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't say this before, but I actually just finished working with the editor of Pacific Rim 2 on a different movie. And so I didn't want to bring up that we'd watched the movie for a podcast. And I also didn't want to slam it too hard on the podcast. So I was really walking a tightrope on that one. But I did actually talk with him afterwards. So we know a few people who've worked on that movie.
That's cool.
What did you do on Pacific Rim?
I worked on the suits that the pilots wear at Legacy Effects.
Those are great suits.
The Jaeger
It was
suits.
they were intense. They look not so intense, but there was, I want to say, something like 200 individual pieces on each one.
Wow.
And so I was working at the very end of the assembly. So there was, they had done the sculptures in 3D for all of the helmets and armor bits, and then those were 3D printed, and people had to clean those up and then mold those and then cast them in rubber and then paint them. And meanwhile, then there were people making the fabric suits that go underneath it that was like spandex and leather and all these things that don't want to go together. And so then I was at the very last step where all of those pieces came together, and we had to figure out, like, map out on each performer's body cast. We'd suit it up and then have to map out, you know, the precise placement of each of those little ab pieces and the shoulder pieces and all the little finger pieces. And
wow, that is awesome to hear, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's just always cool to think of all the thought and time that goes into things like that. I love hearing the behind the scenes of those.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
it was cool to be a part of?
Do you feel like you know the cast really well now that you've molded stuff to all of their abs?
You know, the funny thing is, we were just looking at like black, smooth copies of all of them, but we knew everybody's names. And I was watching, I don't even remember what it was. I was watching some other movie not too long ago, and the credits came up, and I was like, I know that actor. And I had to go up on IMDb, and it was like, oh, I've never seen them in anything else. I just spent like 2 months next to their body cast on Pac Rim 2.
You know them very well and not at all.
Uh-huh.
How do they make a whole body cast?
So it used to be you do, if you don't need the like skin texture detail, then you just lay up plaster bandages on like front half and back half and pop it off. But now it's all done with 3D scanning because it's so much faster to just have the person stand there. And then usually it's done with photogrammetry, which is where you just have like 200 cameras set up around them, and they all just take a picture at the same time. And then the software interprets that into a 3D model of the person.
Okay, see, this makes more sense. I was hoping it was kind of like they tie your arms up by 2 ropes, and then they say, hold your breath, and then they dunk you in a tank, and then that blaster hardens, and then they cut you out.
Well, that's not dissimilar to the old way. I was going to say, it used to be so much more fun when you would coat them in plaster and put straws in their nose.
Very
The
dangerous.
straws is a myth. That's never been the thing. And nobody should ever do that because it's so much more dangerous than all you have to do is just not squish anything in the nose. And if you put straws up there, then you've got these little like weapons that if you bump that, then you start scratching the inside of their nose. It'd be like getting your, those long swab COVID tests times 1,000.
I love this intro. I've learned so much already, and I'm very excited about it.
So, Jasper, you've worked on shows like Dark Crystal and Star Wars, but what is your giant monster experience prior to now, both in your personal and professional life?
Yeah, probably the first thing I would have seen would be the original King Kong. And then I know I had seen the original Godzilla a long time ago, and I didn't really remember much from it. But then I also know that when occasionally there would be other Godzilla sequels on TV, and I remember watching those with my brother and having a good laugh about some of the crazy Mothra business. And but specifically which ones, I have no idea. What happened in them, couldn't tell you.
That's how I feel about all of them. The Bell Kingdom Club.
Yeah. But then I was like, well, if I'm going to watch this one, then I might as well go back and watch the original before. And I'm glad that I did, because it apparently is the only one that mattered.
Ryan?
Well, I'm hoping and assuming he means in terms of canon for this movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yes, but that one's a great movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been open about this, so this is not spoiling anything for me to say that I think this is also a great movie, although not as great, objectively speaking.
But pretty great. But not to give any spoilers.
First off, I'd like to recommend the book Behind the Kaiju Curtain, which came out just over a year ago. and it's a great read. It's essentially a set journal from Norman England, who had the rare experience for a Westerner of being able to document the production of this movie from day one to the end. There's also a bit on Gamera 3, Godzilla 2000, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. There's a ton of fun stories in it that I won't all be able to fit in here, so go check it out. But that was great to help me learn a little bit more about the production of this movie. So as I understand it, this was the final phase of the so-called Godzilla contest, where 3 different filmmaking teams would get to put their stamp on the series, and the most successful of them would be the template for Godzilla movies going forward. This time, Toho gave the reins to Shusuke Kaneko, who had just finished the well-liked Gamera trilogy of the 1990s. And the approach he wanted to do was pretty similar to those movies. Serious, with a high dose of mythology, but with many humorous touches and fun character interactions as well. And his pitch was relatively close to the final movie, but he wanted the guardian monsters to be Baragon, Anguillus, and Veron. And he thought that these underpowered monsters would help them feel like underdogs next to Godzilla, and the audience would be able to grow fonder of these lesser-known characters. I'm guessing you guys don't even remember who Veron is at this point.
No, I do not.
No.
He was in Destroy All
Veron?
Monsters for about 5 seconds. But he had his own solo movie way back in the 50s that we didn't watch. Anyway.
By the way, that pitch makes more sense to me, if I'm being totally honest.
Agreed.
Yeah.
As opposed to good King Ghidorah.
Yeah, that was confusing as fuck. Yeah, that made no sense.
Yeah, we'll come around to that momentarily. But surprisingly, Godzilla series producer Shogo Tomiyama agreed to this idea. But the Toho studio heads felt the movie needed more familiar monsters to be a success. So Kaneko agreed to sub in Mothra and Ghidorah, but he got to keep Baragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Baragon. He's a cutie.
Yeah. But yeah, Mothra kind of works because, fits in with the mythical protector role. Ghidorah is a strange substitution because he's always been evil. He's always been bigger and badder than Godzilla. And I have to give them credit for doing what they can to make it work. But as people who have watched a bunch of these movies, it definitely feels weird for him to be the heroic.
Did he ever come from space, or was that a different 3-headed
Yeah, he
one?
was from space.
That too.
Always.
I was like, the worlds of space versus this magical they feel separate. They feel not combined. Science and then mystical. So, yeah.
Yeah.
He made the cut, though.
He made the cut. Kaneko always wanted to make a Godzilla movie, but constantly felt under pressure from Toho to deliver the results he wanted on time and under budget. Ultimately, though, the movie made its release at the end of 2001 and became the most successful of the new series films by far, proving popular with both audiences and critics. Although the financial success is probably partially due to the fact that it was, bizarrely, on a double bill with a Hamtaro feature film, of all things.
I don't know what that is.
Nope, no.
You don't remember this? It was on Cartoon Network briefly. It's an anime about cute little hamsters who live in a school together.
What is it called?
Is that why I saw pictures of hamsters in Godzilla costumes as toys?
Yeah.
Wait, Hamtaro?
When I looked up this movie, that's what popped up, and I was so confused.
Crazy.
Oh, they
Also,
are so cute.
Ryan, you're bringing back a real deep memory. That's, oof. I do remember that.
Yep. It was on for a little bit in the West. But yeah, a very, very odd match in my eyes, because this is not a particularly child-oriented.
No, this film is
Godzilla movie.
morbid at parts.
Yeah.
Like, unnecessarily. I mean, but not for a kid thing.
Yeah. And just like the movie before and after this, it debuted in the US on DVD in 2004. Something kind of interesting for the real deep nerds, is that the subtitles for this movie have been redone a number of times. So depending on where and when you watch it, you might actually have a different interpretation of what's going on. So if you're like, that's not what happens when I say something, that's why.
You didn't watch the Amazon Prime video version. That's what I watched.
Oh yeah, we might not even have the same version because I watched my Blu-ray at home.
Sam, do you know?
I watched Amazon.
Hell yeah.
We all got that sweet dub. I assume, right? We didn't get a subtitles option.
No, there was no option.
Nope. All right, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat here, except Ryan.
Well, there you go.
With his fancy pants Blu-ray.
He's always in a different boat than us, though. So that's okay.
As long as you don't sink my boat. All right.
No promises.
So-
Just kidding. I liked the movie.
Sam had a cool idea, which is that in lieu of a synopsis, which we've dropped, we're all going to give our log line for the movie. How can you best sum it up?
I was just going to give you, 4 monsters for the price of 1 tonight at 7.
Yeah.
That's how you sell a Godzilla movie.
That's amazing. And a Ham Taro special afterwards. For free.
It's a Hamtaro Christmas at 8.
Come for the ham taro, stay for some monster fights.
All right. And with that, let's go on to the discussion. All right. Shall we begin with the characters as we so often do?
Yes.
And there's actually a bit of substance to them this time.
Hey, what? Look at that.
First off, we've got the first of our protagonists, Yuri Takibana, a reporter for a low-rent docudrama channel somewhere in the
Fake
deep
news.
hundreds on cable.
They're a fake news channel.
Yeah. I love their introduction scene. It's very funny.
Literally from that second, I went, all right, I'm going to like this movie. Just throwing the ball in the pond and the kind of chaotic way they were shown at first, like to 2 dudes hiding behind. I thought I was going to get a kooky male duo, which I was also there for because I've loved those in the past in these movies, but was here for just kind of the general crew that she had around her. But maybe my favorite, well, no, I liked that one mean alien woman who had really cool outfits, but for sure one of my top fave female characters in the franchise. I liked all of the spark, you know what I mean? The kind of go-get-'em attitude.
Yeah, she was very stubborn. She wanted what she wanted. She wouldn't be condescended to.
Her self-producing while riding that bicycle with that camera, I was like, that's what it takes, She's going after it, really.
Which, by the way, my question was she broadcasting live with that little camcorder? Because they seem to be receiving it, which I was just very impressed by.
All around the country receiving it. It was great.
Yeah, she plugs it into some sort of device, which is about the size of a cigarette lighter, which apparently is some kind of satellite modem that gives her perfect signal to
I see.
the TV channel.
We know how technology works. That's right.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's impossible. It doesn't look right from a movie standpoint.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
Yeah, I liked the relationship with her dad. It worked for me. And a lot of times the father-daughter relationships in these films don't, or like they're just a little underbaked. I think when she came home drunk and he was mad at her, and then the next day they kind of made up. I thought that was like a cute little family. Just gave you a quick sense of their connection together, and I liked it.
Yeah, it's nice how they apologize to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think similar to his first Gamera movie, this director / co-writer's first Gamera movie that we watched, I feel like it's not like the characters are like the deepest, most. They're not the best characters I've ever seen, but like they at least have something interesting about them to the point where like they're just mildly intriguing just as presented. It's like, yeah, weird kind of like dorky news channel woman who really cares about it. Like, we're going to care because she cares. And a lot of these movies I feel like don't have that. It's kind of like, man who does a job. Does he care about it? We don't know. We don't know if he cares. We don't know, what he actually likes. It's like, it's a step above, but it's still not like deep, super character-y movie.
Yeah. And I feel like...
But I respect it.
They have like kind of real clear problems they're going after, and they have a sense of humor. And that's kind of all you need to have for me to be like, oh, they're doing a little bit more than sometimes they do. I'm into it.
Well, and especially with the title Giant Monsters All Out Attack, I feel like any amount of like character that you get on top of that is a bonus.
Yeah.
and it's just like, okay, great. This is more than I was led to believe we were going to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he strikes a good balance because he knows people are here to see the monsters and does a good job of working that in while also developing the characters until the last act, which has a little bit of the Mothra versus Godzilla problem where it hits the same beats a few too many times. But before that, it's an admirable effort that I really like. One of the best.
And I think for her dad, too, like, how many times have we seen that general character in the, right? We've literally seen this intro 100 gazillion times of, like, I love when they just cut to it, too. When, like, the movie starts and less than a second in, they're like, here's the problem. We're standing in a room. I'm telling it to these 7 people also in suits. And this is now the movie is starting. But normally that character can be, like, pretty boring and just seen as the general. So I appreciated giving him more of a story. And I also feel like, too, a lot of times these movies are like, I'm the reporter and my second cousin is a scientist at the headquarters. And the family connection is sometimes like there just for a plot device, but like pretty shaky. And here I think it actually was like a little more believable and effective.
Yeah. Definitely. He's got that stern characterization, but we learn about him. We see his traumatic flashback where he was a child and his parents were killed in Godzilla's original rampage. We get a hint, maybe, of a workplace romance with that one female officer who's worried about him. He's his buddy who almost starts crying when he's in danger. That's a good moment. Yeah. So like, there's the little elements of vulnerability.
I think I teared up a little at the end when she was running to him and couldn't give him a hug because he had to get nuclear. I think I'm going to admit that I teared up, but I'm a sap and I lean easily for it. It worked for me.
But we do have a cool old man, Professor Idiyama.
Joanna.
Amazing character. Fantastic.
As we've established, Joanna's here for the old men and the children.
Yes.
And no one in between.
He was great. All those little close-ups of him through that screen. I was like, this guy, great casting. Good job for him. I loved him in it. And I loved the character in general.
He's another returning star from the old 60s films. Probably most notable, he was the evil scientist in King Kong Escapes. And especially beloved for us for this, he was the toy inventor in Godzilla's Revenge.
Shut the fuck up. Shut up.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
That's him.
Oh my god. Good for him, man. What a great... Those are 3 great characters to play. Oh my god, he was the... Okay, well, so that makes sense then. I was like, I'm getting good vibes from this guy. I don't know why, but now that makes sense. Because I already have loved him.
He's a very interesting guy. In the book, Norman England tells some stories about meeting him. And he says the first time he met him, one of the first things Mr. Yamamoto said to him was like, I've got a bone to pick with General MacArthur. And Norman starts saying, well, like, yeah, I know occupation must have been really tough, yada, yada, yada. He's like, no. My problem is he didn't get rid of the Emperor. That was our chance to be rid of this whole damn imperial system. He was a cantankerous, a very non-traditional guy.
Yeah.
As far as Japan is concerned. And apparently every time a white person came on set, he would ask them if they were from Spain, because he really loved to visit Spain, and he was always disappointed when they were not.
I love, too, his moment he had in that underground area. I was like, obviously this was pre that, but it's like that 6th Harry Potter movie, I think, when Dumbledore and Harry Potter are under that underground watery world. It was giving me those vibes, and I was there for it. I think, too, we haven't seen... It's been a minute since we've had a movie with this, like, kind of tie-in. And I guess I could have anticipated maybe with Mothra being in the movie. I feel like she kind of brings that... Well, but even if, I guess not, if she wasn't originally anticipated to be in it. But I just always think it adds so much more fun to these movies when those kind of magical elements are in it.
I agree.
It's like in the Avengers... Who's got the coolest tricks? It's Doctor Strange. He can do the coolest things. It's better than strength and flying fast. You know, it adds way more.
A big hammer.
Yeah, it adds way more cinematically, in my opinion.
You know, it's funny, having only seen 2 of this director's movies, it's very clear what his favorite kinds of things are. Because the man loves mythical stones. He loves, I don't even know, like folk tale monsters. He just 2 movies that don't necessarily need those or warrant them. He's getting them in there.
Yeah, all the monsters have great introductions, especially with the symmetry of the people who are not giving proper respect to the shrines and old things.
What the heck was wrong with those people? Oh my, that's what this movie was so morbid in moments when they were like, get rid of that dog. When they shoved the rock over that dog and put him in the ball.
I didn't quite understand that.
Yeah, and then, so the dog is dead, right?
No, you see it on the TV after Mothra saved the dog. The dog is the only survivor.
Yeah, there's a clip of someone petting the dog. And the dog being like,
okay,
thank God.
Well, good.
So they were just being mean to the dog just because they're bad?
Because they're drunk assholes, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wasn't... cool.
But, like, who doesn't like a dog to the point where they have to, like, put it in a box and drown it? It was so sad. But they got what they had coming to them. I'll tell you that much.
Well... I wish we had seen what they talked about with their bodies being webbed into a cocoon.
Yeah.
That is... that would have been the most grotesque thing Mothra ever did.
And the professor was just kind of standing in the background for some of those shots, right? That's my dream. Yeah. My dream to play a part in something sometime where I just get to stand looking in the background and that be like a key plot point. I would love that.
And then, of course, the motorcycle punks harassing the village leader when he's making out with his wife in the car, I guess. Even though they're like 55 years old.
I forgot about that village leader. He was silly.
He was silly.
Yeah.
He was a silly man.
He was a silly, silly man.
Man, these teenagers, 2001 teenagers in Japan are like really awful. Like these aren't normal, like normal teenagers acting up. This is like murdering dogs and harassing people on motorcycles. Like this is like some straight up like Batman Beyond villain stuff.
That's a good callback. Yeah, the teenagers in Batman Beyond were wild as hell.
Roughly the same era too. Something going on back
Something
then.
in the water with those teens. Then.
Yeah, that was my first introduction to Japan's suicide forest. Is this movie?
That too.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
Oh my god! Like they definitely. Again, just speaking to it not being a kids' film, that and I feel like a few of the deaths when Godzilla arrived. But that I was like, wow, it's fascinating that there's literally any way you could show this hole in the ground, but to do that, just wasn't expecting it because it had been a little kooky up to that point.
And it felt very casual, too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It was a kooky suicide, though. He's played by one of Kaneko's favorite actors, who has always had a funny role in the Gamera movies. And here he shows up as this guy who wants to kill himself until he sees Ghidorah, and then he's too scared.
No, he wants to kill himself until he stands on this magical stone to try to do it, and then the ground collapses into the beautiful underground abyss.
How was that supposed to be received in Japan at the time? Was it kind of like everyone had an understanding that there was a suicide forest and it was kind of like a little joke?
Yeah, because that had been going on for decades at that point.
You know, I like it because to me, I was like, there's a guy hanging. I mean, I understood the reference, but it wasn't so ubiquitous that it was like a funny joke. Right. But I could see if everyone totally knows about it. And it's like, oh yeah, we're taking the piss out of the suicide forest. I kind of like it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, this movie definitely has its share of dark humor. It has one of my favorite dark gags in any Godzilla movie when the young woman survives the first attack and she's in the hospital and she's like terrified to the point of like almost going crazy as Godzilla walks by. And then she's so sure she got away, and she's holding her chest, and his tail comes back and destroys the hospital. It's so funny and morbid at the same time.
It was such a good, and it was so. They literally had me. Like I too was like, phew. And then they got her. Those fishermen too, who were in that boat and driving the boat, and then when Godzilla came up, they have that shot of the boat falling down back into the water. And just that man's face pressed against the glass looking terrified, which I thought was funny to sneak in there.
Yeah, the JPEG of his face glued onto the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of cute little bits like that. Like in the Bonin Islands attack when the guy's at the urinal and Godzilla's stomping closer and he's like, whoa, starts tripping around in the bathroom.
I appreciated that too. I don't know that we've seen a bathroom view of when the ground starts shaking like that in all these movies. I don't recall one, but I was like, that would really suck. That'd be a really fucking tough place to be in.
Is this the first Godzilla movie we watched to have a man visibly peeing?
Yeah. That's your breakthrough. There's the housewife at the grocery store who gets upset that it's being evacuated because of Godzilla.
Honestly, kind of pertinent. Not gonna lie, that feels pertinent to now. I can see it.
For sure. And we actually get, probably not the first time, but one of the few times we see things from Godzilla's perspective, which is really interesting. We get a view from his eyes looking down on the parking lot, seeing how he sees all these little ant-sized people running around. Did you guys catch the slide joke about the 1998 American Godzilla?
Yes.
No.
It's right at the start. He says, the Americans a few years ago saw a huge monster they believed to be Godzilla, and then the two junior cadets whisper, it's like, so Godzilla attacked America? And the other ones are like, that's what the Americans say, but our guys aren't so sure.
Oh, I love that.
That is a really tactful, unusually tactful joke for this series, I feel. That's like really good.
I love the shade they're throwing there.
It's a classy trash talk.
It definitely wasn't Godzilla, but it was something.
That is the closest this series has or ever will get to a Simpsons joke.
That's a huge honor. To dig into the effects a bit, I think Kaneko did a really good job with the resources he had. you do obviously have some dodgy CGI. But when you remember this is the same year as The Mummy Returns and Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and you think about what the CG looks like in those movies, honestly, not that much worse.
I don't know if I can agree with that, Ryan. I think it is worse than those two.
I may be joking a little bit.
I don't mind CGI Mothra, though, because at least the legs move a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself, I was watching it like, why is this? What is bothering me about this? Because it's coming out, like Jurassic Park was almost 10 years before this. Mm-hmm. And then I looked at the budgets and it all made sense.
There's your answer. Actually, I will say the budget certainly. Also, the time frame in which this movie was made is bananas to me. When I saw that the movie started principal photography 7 months before it was released.
What?
I went, oh, okay.
Wait,
Wow.
7 months, you said?
That all makes sense.
7 months?
7 months from starting shooting to the movie debuting in theaters.
Why? That is crazy.
I don't know. I don't know, but
Gotta time it out with the hamsters.
Yeah, I gotta have that. That's so true.
Yeah, those hamsters were itching to get on screen.
That's what it was.
Hamtaro won't wait.
Hamtaro won't wait. That's our other t-shirt for the live show. Hamtaro won't wait.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very traditional Japanese shoot for the time. It's just they aren't afforded the time. And so I think you see a lot of good stuff considering that time frame. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned Mothra, because in the book, Kaneko talks about how frustrated he was that the puppet didn't work as much as he thought it would. Because in some shots you do see the legs moving, but it was frequently broken. And they didn't have the opportunity to wait to get them repaired. So yeah, sometimes you do see Mothra sailing through the sky like a big kite.
I've been there. That's relatable.
Yeah.
How big would this puppet be?
This is just a ballpark, but based on the size compared to a person, maybe like a 12-foot wingspan.
Okay, so pretty big puppet. Not me holding a stick. With the chick.
Do you have a similar story to share, Jasper?
No, because it's not out yet.
Oh, okay. Another time.
I love that.
Well,
But that is like the thing that happens is you can't hold up the production for, even though that is like the character that we're shooting today, there's so much more at play, with, everybody else being on set that you just have to make it happen.
Yep.
Yeah, it reminds me of the famous stories about Jaws, where they couldn't get the animatronic shark to work, and so they completely rethought not showing the shark for the first half of the movie. And it's one of the greatest decisions ever made in a movie. And in this, they couldn't get the legs on Mothra to work, and you just got kind of a shittier version of Mothra. Totally the same.
How are you going to not show Mothra when she's fighting Godzilla?
Okay, Mothra.
Well, but if you want to take the Jaws model, they could have put a little less light on it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was like a little more, in the shadows. You might have gotten away with a little more, but then you kind of lose the fun of it. So
It's
coming out of her chrysalis too. I loved her little translucent period. I was like, oh, gorgeous, beautiful. I was very there for that.
Yeah, I love a beautiful Mothra shot, and that's definitely the best. Her emerging from the cocoon.
And
ever done.
she was prettier than she's been in the past. In the past, she's just hasn't been so colorful, I feel like, right?
She's usually pretty colorful, but in this they swapped out the pale blue for a bright violet, which might have helped her stand out more in your eyes. She's got a cool stinger attack that she only uses once, but it looks nice with the little stingers coming towards camera.
Is that a thing?
This is the introduction of that Mothra attack. They used it in the new American movie. I think it's just in those two where they gave her a stinger, but it's a cool idea.
I appreciated not having Mothra as a larvae too long either, too, right? In the past, we've kind of seen this other not pleasant form of her. I just
Oh, have we ever?
I just like when
I
she.
bet Sam was very happy that we only had one shot.
I was.
I only want her to be pretty. I don't want the rest of it.
Yeah, no, to be fair, I it's not the concept of Mothra being a larva that bothers me. It's certainly the disgusting nature of the presentation and the powers, I'm making air quotes, the abilities that Larva Mothra has that really ruffle my feathers.
But
Yeah.
you know, one of the few flaws of this film, no song. And I feel like I just don't know how you can't even not allude to it. If he's talking,
But they did in a way.
How?
For Ryan, they just had a little throwaway, like, look, it's possibly twins. For Ryan, it was possibly twins, right?
Twins. Yeah. There's a reference to the twin fairies when Mothra flies over the city. We get those two young ladies in the white dress standing right next to each other.
I missed that. That's still, again, they're talking all this talk about historical, all this old stuff. They could at least been like, and they performed and they enjoyed the great circuit of entertainment for years and years and passed away in their sleep at a happy old age. I wanted that narrative on the fairies.
That would be wild.
I couldn't disagree more. Actually, it really wouldn't have made sense in this movie to have the fairies. Like, it's a different thing.
As much as I love the fairy characters, I agree that based on the setup here, I don't know how well they would work. It'd be kind of a twist too far to suddenly have them show up. And I was like, in addition to all these monsters that were here the whole time.
I guess too, if I didn't catch that dress moment, that makes a little more. At least they alluded to it. I thought for a second they didn't have any reference to it, and I was bummed.
Yeah.
But they do basically say that there were no other, like, there was the original Godzilla, and then they're saying that nothing else happened until this movie, right?
Oh,
Right.
good point.
50 years of monster silence.
So this is the new introduction of Mothra.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point.
Ghidorah is kind of interesting because usually he's like a big marionette, right? And he is in some shots in this movie. But for the first time, they had Ghidorah played by a guy putting his two arms in the other two heads. So we get a very, like, on the ground puppeteer Ghidorah with his real head in the center head, and then he's moving the other two heads around with his arms.
Which I for sure caught, like, in a half second. Did anybody else just go, oh, that's weird, his arms are sticking out of the other heads? Or was that just my curse?
No, but I do want to rewatch it.
I mean, I know it, so I can't really speak honestly. But
Wait, so how does that work? So on set, for half the shots of him, it's just they're like, all right, Jeff, go put the costume on. And then he's like, doing this?
yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Cinema, man. I'm telling you. The magic of cinema.
Yeah.
Can't have been comfortable.
No.
No, bent over like that. Yeah, that's a hard position to stay in. And for anyone who hasn't puppeteered, it's really tough to stay in it for a long time. Try just holding your arm over your head and see how long you can do that, and then try holding 10, 20 pounds up there at the same time. And I do like the more mythical look they came up with for Ghidorah. Although apparently it was a pain in the ass. There's stories from on set of how the scales were constantly falling off. Like every time Ghidorah would come on and off set, there'd be a trail of the scales showing where he'd been, and they had to pick them up and individually glue them back in position.
That reminds me of I worked on this junk food monster that was the spokesperson for the AM/PM like gas station stores, and he's got this beard made of Cheetos. And like I would come home from a shoot with a pocket full of fake Cheetos because they would just always fall off. And I definitely like looking at this guy. I was like, how are those scales attached like that? Because that is, there's no good
Toomgus is his name, right? The AM/PM monster. Let's get him in one of these movies.
Yeah.
That guy's the stuff of nightmares. Way scarier than any Godzilla.
You guys, when I first started for my like day job, advertising job, I had to take a little class through the place I was working, and our group project was to come up with a healthy pitch for AM/PM's like healthy food, and Toomgus had to be in there. And we were like, all right, what the fuck are they trying to do here? Why? Again, a Cheeto beard monster selling salads makes no sense.
Yeah, who goes to AM/PM and is like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to have a salad.
We came up with like healthy-ish, I think was our like tag. We were like, we're not getting there 100%, but we'll give you halfway, I guess. Wow, too.
And did they make the campaign?
We won the little class, but I don't know that they took our ideas. If they did, I hope they would have paid me for it.
You would hope so.
You'd hope, but probably not. When they kind of combined, when Mothra died and became glitter. Oh, I love that. Whenever in these movies, they're like, glitter, 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 sparkle. I'm all about it. And then when Ghidorah was kind of like glowing with the Mothra glow, it made me like want to play a video game. I don't play video games and don't often, but that Godzilla versus that glowing creature, I was like, is this Legend of Zelda? Again, which I know nothing about, but my interpretation of it, I was very into it.
You know what I thought looked like a video game was there was the shot of Godzilla like in this valley at night, and then these helicopters overhead, and he starts shooting his breath at him, and I was like, he just kind of has this beam of breath that just kind of like boom, 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 and I was like, it's like a Space Invaders game right here. Did they make that?
Yeah. What literally looks like a video game is when the empowered Ghidorah first pops out of the Tokyo. That looks real bad. That looks like a PS1 cutscene.
Yeah, so what's the precedent for CGI in these up to this point? I mean, if you guys are caught up now?
They've been experimenting with it since 95. Definitely do not have the time to get it quite right.
Yeah, I think this is the least egregious one so far.
It's
in terms of CGI stuff.
They are improving apart from that one shot. See, like, there's a CGI shot that reveals Godzilla's wound. And it doesn't look real. But there is a nice bit of character animation when he's falling in the water. He gets like a nice nasty neck thrash and he snaps his head at Ghidorah as he falls in. So I was like, okay, that's a good animation quirk, even if, the textures are too smooth.
I thought the underwater parts too, even though it didn't, fully look like they were underwater the whole time. I like that element whenever they add it, because it is just it changes the game a bit on the, like, we're fighting in a hole, which they did have in this movie, which is good because they have to have it, or I feel like it's, not a classic. But I don't know. It didn't look fully realistic, but I thought it looked cool, I guess is my very base level response to that.
I mean, that's what the Godzilla movies are all about, literally. Their approach has never been about realism. It's about making something visually striking and interesting. And then there's a bunch of that.
Wait, let's talk about Baragon for a second, too.
I was going to say, Baragon we got to get to.
Full-on little troll head right there. He was kooky.
I like the lady who says, it's enormous, but quite cute, really.
Yeah, that's me. That was me. I was that woman.
Sure, he's got those big puppy dog ears that jump forward when he's roaring.
He looks like he belongs in the Land Before Time in this kind of version of him. Like, he's not that scary. He's just kind of big-eyed and silly looking.
Are you ready for Baragon to become even more adorable?
I don't know if I could take it.
I got to share something with you guys here.
Is it a Baragon Hamtaro crossover?
No, not quite. So this is the suit actor for Baragon, who is a stunt woman. And you'll see that she has some very funny and cute habits when she's playing the part.
What? Wait, what? That suit is like 8 times the size of hers.
So she would actually roar herself on set when Baragon was roaring, as you can hear.
Okay. Okay, Ryan, I need you to send me that because that's adorable, and that seems like something they need to have at Warner Brothers on the lot tour. Like, you get in a monster suit, and you get to walk around it and roar. But also, how does the head move when she's in it?
I'm not sure if it's radio controls or...
To me, they all look like cable controls.
Yeah.
But I don't see... Like, it looks to me like there's somebody off the side with a lever, but I didn't see the cord coming out. So maybe they do have something, that she has to squeeze inside or...
Right. That makes it...
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Magic.
I know. So, Rie Ota helps make Paragon adorable.
Yeah.
An obvious underdog to Godzilla. Definitely not going to win, but he does his best, the little fella.
It's fun how like they have people thinking that it's Godzilla at first when it first appears, and you're kind of going, boy, if this is Godzilla, this is a weird interpretation.
I literally had a note that was like, oh shit, what happened here?
I kind of felt like that was a cool idea, and it didn't quite work as well as maybe it could have for me. I don't quite know how to do it, but the idea that there's a different monster showing up that everyone thinks is Godzilla because they haven't seen Godzilla in a long time is cool. I don't know if it's that I want to reveal a very clear reveal where everyone thinks it's Godzilla and then he pops up and it's very obviously not him. I don't know. It was like it was missing something for me, but I liked the sort of idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying that wouldn't be more interesting. I don't think that was the intent, though. I think it was just emphasizing the confusion and the humor of that. Because not only do you have people like, is this Godzilla? Who's that? Like, what's that monster? But, normally in these movies, they just start they give the monster a name, just as if that was making sense, like the most logical thing to do. But in this one, the general has to be talked into it. He's like, no, it makes sense because they have these parallels in the legend. And he's like, oh, that's a bit far-fetched to me. There's that whole kind of feeling of not everybody is immediately on board with the Guardian Monsters idea.
Yeah.
I guess I felt like that could have been done more coherently or something. Like I don't know. I think even that idea there could have been more of a moment to kind of explore that or something. I felt like that was kind of like, oh, what a cool idea, and I was kind of hoping for something to happen there.
Yeah, I feel you.
Godzilla though looked cool.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite Godzillas. He's got those cool ghostly white eyes.
Yeah, we haven't seen that before, have we? Those like glassy eyes. I feel like especially too them having that kind of hype confusion around Baragon and then actually showing Godzilla, he looked significantly scarier. Like, okay, this is a real spooky monster. I always love the blue glowing back in the design. And yeah, those eyes though, really nailed it with that.
Well, and I think the cool thing about the eyes too is that like it's something that we do a lot. Like if you can't make the eyes move, you can just make them all black and just say it's all, beady little rodent eyes. And then you kind of interpret like the same as this, like it doesn't matter that the eyes aren't moving because you kind of interpret where it's looking without having to actually see it. And so you almost like get more life out of it than if you had painted a realistic eye on it that doesn't actually track.
Yeah, it felt more ethereal. And I feel like, when he does have those more kind of reptile eyes, he just... I don't know, it seems a little... I don't know the word to use, but he seems, you're right, more lifeless almost.
And it helps he's got these beautiful facial controls in this movie. You can squeeze his eyes shut and the snarls on the lips. One of the coolest things about this movie is it actually makes what, at the time, and still is, quite a bold statement in Japan, which is that they have not taken responsibility for their war crimes and the heinous conquering in World War II. Mm-hmm. And so you have all these angry, murdered people and soldiers possessing Godzilla, and that's why he comes back to Japan, is a specifically on a message of ghostly revenge. It's a really cool and spooky idea, and it was controversial. You know, at the time you still had textbooks that wouldn't talk about the forced prostitution and experimentation that Japan did. And so I imagine that the guy playing the old man was very happy to deliver this message, considering his anti-imperialist views.
Well, and the series has been almost largely nationalistic otherwise.
Yeah, a lot of movies have been.
Well, I think, too, because it was hearkening back so much to the first film as well, and that first film kind of, you know, Godzilla being, you know, just whole narrative kind of coming about following the atom bomb, and then they even had that moment where that teacher referenced it in the film. I think it was, I was appreciative of the fact that, okay, they were trying to hold to these more kind of deeper elements within the project than just kind of saying, oh, we're going to have these silly, funny moments on it. But it also still isn't, because it still was like, these are the people who are mad about all of the misgivings of Japan, and they're like, we got to save the country, we must kill them again, you know? So it wasn't like we're taking a moment to recognize what happened. It's like, we have to kill them again.
Yeah, it's this interesting fusion of a throwback to the original, where you have these serious political themes echoing from World War II, and like the Shinichi Sekizawa type of fantasy adventure story that was like the Mothra versus Godzilla type of thing. It's like they're mashed together here, and for the most part it works well. Sometimes there's some weird friction between those two things.
But I think it's like a stronger, too. I mean, I feel like so often the narrative, right, is like, oh, it's climate change and how humans are destroying the earth, which is, of course, obviously also a very big and important theme. But I think sometimes that just gets like so watered down. This felt a lot stronger in the sense of that it was unique and obviously had a really deep intention behind it.
Yeah, it obviously doesn't go deep in on this, but it has this sort of theme of, what is Japan's future going to be? Like, what are we going to make of it? Yeah.
Yeah, again, it got there. 2 out of 10 actually got there, but the thought that it at least even was thinking in that direction, I applaud it compared to some of the others.
Exactly.
Didn't solve the problems. But
Godzilla himself has this very sinister, cruel intelligence. Like, he's very sharp. He's always picking up when people are sneaking up behind him. He's ready to dodge out of the way at the last second. And so you get this, probably the nastiest Godzilla of all time, I would say.
I agree. Of the ones I've seen.
We also, he has a great charge up, first of all. You mentioned the glowing back. This is the best Godzilla charge up, I think. But what did we think of his grisly demise?
It was sick.
I loved seeing that thing, that whatever, drilling through from his stomach. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I have to say that him trying to charge up his breath and beams blasting out of him rather than out of his mouth is a probably top 3 Godzilla moment for me in this series. And it's partially too that, like, and I was going to kind of say this in my synopsis, but I like have criticisms to make of this movie and sometimes in the filmmaking of it, but it's so much more coherent in just cause and effect, and it, you know, kind of like, especially in these monster fights, like they're so much more clearly made than some of these previous ones we've had. And so that when, you know, for that moment to happen and for it not to just be like, oh, I guess that's what happened, but to be like, oh, I get it, and it's a surprise and it's done very like clearly, it's just like it was like, wow, great, we haven't seen it, it was done really well. You know, all of his beam stuff actually I thought was really good throughout. But that was a highlight for me.
Yeah. Certainly the goriest monster death we've seen up to this point. And made even nastier when we see his heart later and all those fish are chewing on it until it starts beating.
That was also great. Godzilla Heart is probably my favorite ending of any of these movies. Yeah. Too, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime a ship flies into a living being and it makes it out alive, I'm going to call BS, but I'll go with it for the movie.
It's all right. He was protected by the spirit of his daughter.
Yeah, that's right.
He was looking out for him.
Right. And also how those two people did not get crushed to death on those rocks by all the water that was slamming at them. How did they not leave with a head injury? I have no idea. But again, good for them.
Well, she already had a head injury.
That's
so
true. So she was already okay.
She was, she had the bandage to protect her.
That's true. That's accurate. Okay. Also, when they fell off and he lost his glasses, I was like, wow, I've never thought about that, but that would be the end of me. If I fell off into the water like that and lost my glasses, how would I see? How would I get anywhere? I'm totally like there'd be no.
You'd have a Velma from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Like, my vision is so bad, the government covers daily contacts for me, which are expensive. But again, they're like, this chick cannot be walking around Manhattan. So he didn't stress about it at all. His vision must not have been that bad.
No, not only did he get himself to safety, Yuri was passed out, and he took her with him. Maybe he just wears glasses for his style. Like...
Yeah.
That's what I always like. I always would like to think I'm fairly athletic. If a zombie apocalypse ever came, I could make it happen. But no, I can't. My contacts would dry out and then that'd be the end of me. Ryan, what do you think of his death, aside from being the gross?
I remember as a kid, I didn't like it. I thought it was gross. But now I like it as a change of pace. It's very different. It's very, I'm saying surprising. This is the first time you ever see it. I'm guessing all three of you were like, whoa, when that happened.
Yeah.
It's a fun moment for sure.
I also want to give a shout out to every actor in the movie who really gave it their all for that happy, teary-eyed ending. They were like, we're going to do a close-up on 27 people to get this point across. And everyone showed up in their close-up. A little overjoyed, a little teary-eyed. I was like, yes, everyone came to set that day ready to work. I was happy for them. Like some people they did close-ups on, they really didn't need, like we didn't need it. You could have gotten them in a group shot, but all right, whatever.
It's a very feel-good ending until you see the heart left beating underwater. Which I'm not sure how they were planning to spin that into a sequel, had there been one.
Did it feel small?
The heart just sprouts little legs.
Crawls up. It felt little, right? The heart? You'd think his heart would be bigger? It felt kind of small to me.
Well, he's a very hateful guy. He's very hateful. It's like the Grinch, where his heart had to grow several sizes.
The scale is weird because I assume the fish are supposed to be like big tunas, but you can't really tell. They look like those little minnows. So it does look small.
Okay. I'm assuming the size of a whale is the heart, but okay. Glad we're...
That would be a really funny special effects unit task of having to paint tiny little fish as though they're big fish for a miniature scene. Like someone has to just take like a little minnow and put like a little humpback whale hump prosthetic on it and paint it blue.
One interesting thing in the subtitles at the end, which I did not remember this, so this must have been a new set of subtitles for me, is when the missile is going towards Godzilla but it hits Ghidorah instead. The general's buddy says "fuck" in the subtitles.
Yeah, did they say that in the dub? For some reason, I heard like a fuck shit or something in there. No, did I miss that?
I don't
remember it.
Huh?
Yeah, which is very strange because he says, "I'm gonna mangle this," but "kusal," which is it literally means little pieces of shit in Japanese, but it's equivalent to our "damn." So to see it translated so harshly is very strange.
What's the reverse of editing something for TV, where you're actually making it more profane?
Yeah.
It reminds me of like those anime fan subs people make, because they always tend to like make it seem harsher than it really was. So yeah, the ending is one of the weakest. Well, not the very ending, but the last act is one of the weaker bits because Yuri gets sidelined. She passes out a couple times. She doesn't have a lot to do, and we get a lot of repetitive Godzilla Ghidorah fighting beats. So that's really the lowest point IMO. But apart from that, I'm always really happy to revisit this one.
So here's my question to you who have seen so many of these now. Do you think that this delivers on all-out attack?
I think so. The only place they weren't fighting or attacking was space, but they were in the water. They were popping up in all different ways. They had a nice arc of one little pop-up and then the next. But Ryan, I don't know. They could have had maybe more fireworks, more of them fighting all at once.
I suppose maybe if you were expecting a big monster brawl where all four of them were in the mix at once, there might be a little letdown there. But I mean, this is a pretty monster-packed movie. I think there's a good monster to human screen time ratio in this one.
And I think that even there's a good, that narrative of having to convince of the mythological stuff, like it keeps them in tow even when they're not on screen. But that's a great question. I would love anyone listening to hear their thoughts as well, if they're down to share.
Well, it's funny because I hear what you're saying, but I personally, there have been a couple that have had an actual all-out attack, and I have found the big group of monster costumes tumbling around to be my least favorite kind of monster fight, and I'm almost always here for pyrotechnics right next to the person in a suit. And this one delivers on the pyrotechnics. So for me, it was among the more exciting finales to any of these. And just honestly, you could just have Godzilla just running away from explosions for a half hour, and it would be my favorite third act.
That dock explosion is great. It's just the giant
it's really
fireballs
good.
are going down the dock. Well, now I have to ask, Jasper, what did you think of the big monster brawl?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much what I was promised. I think, the funny thing is, what's the first guy's name?
Baragon.
The red one?
Yeah. So Baragon, not promised in the title. So he's kind of like this bonus one that you get. And so the fact that he's not part of the final, action sequence, that's what I was told. I was told
right.
Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah. I feel like it's just kind of like we're giving you exactly what we promised.
That logline title sold it exactly as planned.
Mm-hmm.
No more, no less.
And because it's two heavy hitters, the underdog narrative I think would have been nice, but I think that because it's two heavy hitters of the series fighting against Godzilla, that adds to kind of the behind the scenes build coming into it. That adds to that moment.
Yeah. Even if I have my quibbles with the changes they made to the concept, you can't deny that Mothra and King Ghidorah got more marquee value than Angelus and Veron.
For sure. Weird that they came together, but again, I loved the glitterness of it all. Of them coming together.
And if you haven't seen it, fans, anyone who's listening, they did do maquettes of what Angelus and Veron would have looked like. They were getting ready to build the suits when they had to make the change. So you can look them up for what might have been in an alternate reality.
So at the end, they say that the old man has disappeared from the tapes.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that. The Sixth Sense moment. Oh my God. Amazing.
So he was, I don't know, help me out.
He was a
ghost
the whole time.
And was he supposed to be, he was supposed to have been there in the first movie, the original movie, and then...
Yeah.
Is he one of those characters, or is he kind of a new guy?
He's a new character, but I guess the idea is he was trying to figure out a way to stop Godzilla at the time, and even though he died, he was still ready. He was ready to get those guardian monsters going when Godzilla came back.
I love a professor, and I love a ghost professor. It's a great button to have. Two of those silly TV people being like, I know, we'll have a special. It'll be a rage. And they're like, yeah. like the reactions at the center, whatever, military center were so like somber and serious. They're little teary eyes. And then the reactions at the TV station were just chaotic. So I thought it was
Yeah. Her boss is another great funny character because I love his little vanity touches where he gets upset when he sees he has gray hairs and he's offended when one of his workers calls it the bargain basement of the airways. He's trying to quit smoking. I have no idea what he's chewing on that whole movie.
That was on my list of questions is what is he chewing?
Hair, was that his own hair or a wig? Either way, it was not good, but he was committed to it. Wow, I can't believe I forgot he was a ghost. That was my favorite moment of the movie.
How did they put a ghost in jail, though? That was my question. Why did Baragon have to break him out?
Well, and why? It's one thing to tell the ghost to go to jail, but the ghost didn't have to follow along.
Yeah, he went along with it.
The ghost knew he had to hold out for that great reaction at the end of the movie. He knew he just had to keep playing human. He's like, I'm going to tell them about these mythological monsters, but if I'm a ghost, that'll be too much for them. I'm just going to hold that for now.
Yeah. Alrighty, shall we go to the judgments now?
Mm-hmm.
As Godzillavangelists, it is our holy duty to assign each movie its proper place in Godzilla heaven, hell, or purgatory, with heaven being the best, purgatory being in the middle, and hell being the worst, of course. So, Joanna, let's start with you.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you place GMK?
This one's going into heaven for me. It had strong characters, stronger than we usually see, again, to the point where I got a little teary-eyed. And I think having the father, the daughter, and the ghost professor were strong enough for me, for them to have enough of a kind of life to them, even if the rest of the characters were, you didn't get much on them. I don't think you needed it. The monsters, I love the look of them. I thought the timing of the intro of them, I feel like sometimes it can be like, oh, and here's another and another. But they were distinct enough that each time I thought had a little build to them in a way that I liked, and I thought they looked good. And I think, like I said before, the different setup of kind of referencing this dark historical past from Japan versus just kind of top lining like, oh, it's the environment. I thought that was interesting and added. Again, they didn't, go way deep into it, but added just a tiny bit more depth and cool than some of the other plot setups that they had. So it's heaven for me. I'd rewatch it. The only thing it didn't have was maybe a Mothra song and a kid, but I think it's okay because you telling me that he's the toy maker from the previous film, I think that's enough for me. And I think if I were to say, I literally, when you up front were like, they wanted the film to be serious, have mythology, be funny. I wrote, in my notes that this was kooky, mystical, and morbid. And that's what I want from these movies. Those are my favorite types of them, when they're not just like science and this, the space ones are fun, but I think the mysticalness is better. So, yeah, I think I would put this, if I were to say to people, they say, oh, you've watched 200 of these. If I'm to watch 3, what would you say? I'd say watch the original. And then I'd say if you want a kind of taste of some of the more other places that this series could lean into, watch this one.
Yeah, that's the perfect segue for me, because if I have a film buff friend who wants to try Godzilla, I'll show him the original. But if I have somebody who wants the fun aspects as well, I start with GMK, because it's just a good entree. You don't have to use your imagination as much as some of the older movies because it's a little bit more modern in its approach, and you have that consummate Kaneko filmmaking even under pressure. And it's one of my top 5 easily. So this is an easy heaven for me. It's a lot of fun. It's very funny, very intentionally funny. It kind of reminds me of like a Bong Joon-ho movie in a way, like that balance of darkness and humor. And you get some great monster scenes. So I am all about GMK. It's one of the easiest heavens we've had. Sam, you want to give us your rating?
Yeah, I'm gonna also go heaven on it.
3 for 3. What?
3 for 3. I think it's a Godzilla heaven because I genuinely do think it's one of the better ones. You know, I don't know how I'd be ranking them, but I do feel like I felt like it could have been better. But that at the same time implies that there were things that I understood and could even point to and say, oh, this is a cool idea that could have been explored more, which I genuinely haven't felt in a while. I think again, Kaneko is clearly better than the filmmaker. You know, just filmmaking wise, it's a step up from some of these other ones, but it was a little sloppy and rushed, and I felt it. And I felt, especially in the first half, like it could have been better and clearer and quicker, but nonetheless, it was still more coherent and clever than the ones we've seen lately. So for me, I kind of wish it feels like it's, and maybe this is a to what Ryan is saying, but it feels like it fits into the box of the kinds of movies these have been, but just with some more ideas. And I feel like had you just stripped away the other stuff and taken the ideas of guardian monsters and ghost-powered Godzilla, and there are ghosts, and just let it be that, I think there's an even cooler movie for me in there. But nonetheless, it's certainly a heaven, and it's the best one we've watched in quite a while, even if it isn't like one that I would watch all the time, personally.
Fair enough. I will take that, considering how down you've been on these last few.
Oh, don't even get me. I mean, I could go on.
I felt revived by this one. I was like, oh, thank God. A little when
Yeah.
they threw the ball in the thing at the beginning I was like, thank God we're back to a little silly. Thank goodness.
But Ryan, I do, to your point of a Bong Joon-ho movie, I'm glad The Host exists because that's like what I almost like. Not that this could be that, certainly, but like it wasn't that for me. But at least we do have Bong Joon-ho movies, and he did one that is actually that thing I was kind of wanting.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to doing The Host. I just meant, you know what I mean, though. It has that same sort of tonal balance that he likes to do. Mm-hmm. All right, can we go 4 for 4? Jasper, what is your rating?
No pressure. No pressure. Just say hell.
Yeah.
And just mess it up.
The worst movie I've ever seen. I'm leaving this podcast right now. No, I feel like to critique a movie, you have to kind of look at what did they want it to be. And I feel like they made exactly the movie that they were trying to make. And I think the monsters are cool. I like that where they have the mythology, they're not trying to over-explain it. And it's there, and that's just enough so that you can kind of see this is kind of what's happening. And you don't need to get too deep into the specific rules of why. It's just, this is how it works.
And thank God for that.
And I think that you can follow what the characters are thinking and doing, and nobody's making weird off the wall decisions. You're yes, that she is going to follow the monsters to get the story because that is what we are led to believe her character is. I would not do that. I think that's a terrible idea, but I believe that she is doing that. And so, this is heaven. This is exactly what it's supposed to be. I think.
4 out of 4. Yeah.
You know what that means? Straight flush. Play the sound effect.
Straight flush.
Play the sound effect.
We haven't had a positive straight flush in a while.
No.
We have not, and I'm so glad it was this one.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, I feel like you've been hyping this one up low-key in the background for a minute. So I'm excited that it kind of landed where it was expected.
I'm glad too. I would have been pretty devastated if you guys didn't like this one. I'd be like, oh god, it's gonna be a long slog.
The title had me worried.
The title had me real worried.
Because that could have gone any number of ways.
Yeah, I don't understand it. They literally every other Godzilla movie they made an effort to make it sound more appealing in English, but in this one, literally just translated every word and slapped it on a DVD cover. I don't.
Okay, question for you guys. Question: what would you title this movie?
Ghost monsters. I don't know if you want to give the plot away too soon.
I feel like the serious answer is Godzilla versus the Guardian monsters.
Oh yeah, the Guardians.
Oh, that's good.
It is, but also I would never watch that. If I just heard Godzilla versus the Guardian monsters, I'd be like, yeah, that's correct, but also...
Maybe even if it was just Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Battle of the Guardian monsters. Sure, that's an improvement.
Or Battle of the Guardians, yeah.
So what I'm thinking that I thought was funny was you said that people call it GMK. But to me, it seems like Giant Monsters All Out Attack is the unique part of this title.
Right, it seems like All Out Attack, yeah.
Like, were there no other movies that had all three of them?
There are movies
in the title?
that have all three of them, but not in the title. This is the only movie that name drops Mothra and King Ghidorah in the same breath as Godzilla.
But also that we have multiple movies that are some variation of Godzilla versus Mothra, or Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, so it gets kind of confusing to me. I like what Jasper's suggesting, and just drop that part.
Isn't Godzilla's Revenge all monsters attack?
Yeah, that's the trip up.
It's confusing. And how many monsters are in that one? Not so many, I don't think.
Well, I guess it's mainly Godzilla, Minya, and Gabra, but you also have Godzilla fighting Abira and the spider and all that. So there's a bunch of monsters in that one.
All out attack versus all monsters. Yeah, so there's... it's confusing.
Yeah, that is a problem, actually. We do have all monsters attack that actually has all monsters.
And on top of that, you have destroy all monsters to add to the confusion.
Oh, wait, that's the one with all monsters. God, these titles, man.
Look, when you got to name 38 movies, you're going to have some overlap.
That's true. When you have 78 films to title, it's going to get exhausting.
To increase your frustration, Sam, the next movie we're covering, we're going to cover two at once, but the first one is called Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla.
Cool. Cool, because we've had Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. That is the third one. I won't get over that one. Yeah, this is boy. These guys they have a problem here. I'm gonna keep singing this. That's a weird way of saying it. I'm gonna keep taking them to task for this because they have a title problem. At least for me, I want to be able to know and reference those movies in my mind. And not have them just all have the same title with one word difference.
I'm literally going to have to study like I'm studying for a college exam before our live show. So I can remember what the hell happened in each iteration of each movie. And so I can win the pop quizzes.
Yeah. The second movie is Tokyo SOS. We're going to be covering those at once because those actually go together. They are a shared continuity for once.
That's a title.
That's a good name. And it sounds like it had a great like rock na 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 theme song to it. Mm-hmm. So if it doesn't, I'm going to be mad.
I just heard it to the sound of ABBA's SOS, and that's the version I want.
I also just didn't give a shout out, but the music in this film I thought was very like present in the moments. It was like dun, 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 and I was there for it, so I liked it. I mean, it was...
Yeah, I thought Godzilla had a cool theme.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was now, but...
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. You got...
Yeah.
The artist was Kao Otani. Only did this one, but he did the Gamera movies, so Kaneko brought him over for this. It's a pretty good score. Yeah. So I have to, of course, beg for more letters and reviews. We need them. Come on, people, send me those emails.
Send them on in.
So this week, I'm taking a comment from one of our Twitter posts. This was from Redemption. A question: how much hassle would it be for you to release on Stitcher as well? I recently swapped over from Spotify, and yours was the only thing I listened to that's not on both. If not, that's cool. I'll just keep up on YouTube. Well, you inspired me, Redemption. So I looked into it, and we are now on Stitcher. So this is an informative question.
Wow.
Yes.
See, you write in, we take action.
Yeah. So if that's how you prefer to listen to your podcast, we're on Stitcher now.
Now, would anyone prefer to listen to us on Patreon for $10 a month?
We'd enjoy
Because we
that.
would make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. But yes, please send us more letters. And before we go, though, I got to thank you for being here, Jess.
Yeah.
It was great having you on.
Yeah, that was
Thank
great.
you so much. It was. I learned a lot. It was awesome.
This was fun, and I'm glad that you brought me on for a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could have been.
You could have been in for some real
Jasper,
shit.
Jasper, we've been in dark times for about a year now.
A year?
I'm not even kidding.
The Gamera trilogy coming up. I'm like, oh, thank God. I hope I love it.
Yeah, we had Gamera as a nice reprieve, but largely the 90s into, especially the late 90s into the early 2000s have been tough times, at least for me.
Yeah, same. I think I've given a lot of low purgatories or hells.
Yeah, I'm glad we have this revitalization to perk us up. Because the next two are a little bit more by the book. But Jasper...
Yay!
Well, I liked our last one, but yeah. But
Yeah.
before that, yeah, here's a little pivot. Jasper, thank you so much.
Yes, and do you have anything
Yeah.
to plug for our audience or otherwise share with them?
I work on a lot of stuff I can't really talk about, but I usually post my personal projects on Instagram.
One more thing I'll plug for you is Dark Crystal, the show on Netflix, is amazing. And if you watch the behind the scenes special, Jasper's in that for a minute as well.
Which one? Dark Crystal?
Yeah, Age of Resistance. Really good show. Really good.
Oh, I'm glad you thought so. Thanks.
But for you, our dear audience, thank you so much for listening. Please share us with your friends, family, anybody who likes cult movies, weird movies, monster movies. Leave us comments, send us letters, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. And we greatly appreciate all of you. Mm-hmm. And until the next time, keep spreading the word of Godzilla. Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, is brought to you by me, Ryan Sargent, and my friends Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. This episode was edited by Brogan Malloy. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the wonderful artists who made the movies we talked about today. Godzillavangelists is a satirical, critical work not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at godzillavangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at GodzillaVangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel, and the latest episode is always on SoundCloud too. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us next time. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.